Joining me on the podcast today is someone who announced himself to the world, winning a race that will go down in history. He broke what was thought to be an unbreakable record by 10 hours. This year, Jack Scott won the Montagne Winter Spine Race, which covers 268 miles in a time of 72 hours, 55 minutes and 5 seconds, with only 50 minutes of sleep. To try to simplify that distance, Jack ran just over 10 marathons in that time consecutively. What's most impressive about Jack is that running is not his full-time job. With the world of ultra running on the rise, there is so much to be learnt from Jack. At only 29 years of age, his story is already a fascinating one, but there is so much more to come. What does it take to become one of the world's greats? In this episode, we will find out. Guys, I'm incredibly proud to say that my first book, Fortune Favours the Brave, published by Penguin, is now in stores to purchase, or you can order your copy online. The book consists of 76 short lessons on finding strength in vulnerability. Adversity is something you will inevitably face in life. I wrote this book to share and showcase how to process that and what can come from it. Adversity is something we wish would never happen to us, but it does. I want you to understand though that it can inspire you to achieve incredible things, not just for yourself, but for others too. Everyone on this earth is born amazing at something. It is just a case of finding out what that is. Life is incredibly short and valuable, so make it count. You may find that you don't believe in your ability or fearful to test yourself. By the end of this book, I believe you will. To get yourself a copy now, it can be purchased at Waterstones, Amazon, or by simply clicking the link on my Instagram bio, Joshua Patterson _JP now. Jack, how you doing, brother?
Really well. Thanks for having me in the South.
I am so unbelievably excited to have you on the podcast. You know, I was made aware of what you achieved recently. And I think for me, it's what's great about this podcast is that there's individuals like yourself who will be known amongst so many people. And yet you could walk through the streets and there are so many others that would have absolutely no idea what you've done. And that blows my mind because I just feel like in this world right now, there is just so much going on. Is there a part of you where it's a disappointment, I guess, that when you achieve something so phenomenal that I guess more people are not aware of something like that? The ultra running space it's quite a quiet one.
I think that suits me, to be honest. Maybe that was the reason I was drawn to the longer distances than maybe trying to lower my marathon time by 4 minutes that can take 5 years. I was always fascinated with distance, with challenges, and a lot of the routes that I run on, I know we'll talk about the Pennine Way. The Pennine Way is there for everyone and anyone to go and experience life and have good days, bad days on it. And I think the route is special, any route.
Would you like to share with everyone what it is that you achieved this year?
There's a race that starts North Derbyshire, just below the Peak District, and ends just over the border in Scotland. So it's 268 miles, give or take. Starts on mid-January, so you've got about 8 hours of daylight. And I managed to do the 268 miles in 72 hours, 55 minutes, and take just over 10 hours off a really strong course record. So it was a right place, right time sort of run.
Be honest, when you get out of the shower and you're in your towel, do you just flex in front of the mirror with a grin on your face now?
No, I do not. I have been known and spoke about it before. Where I do have moments where I nod to myself like, yeah, we got that right, and it felt like an amazing moment, and a lot of work and momentum got me to that point. But just I honestly just believe that I was in the right place at the right time, and that I've always had like a bit of potential in this sport, and to actually put down an elite performance is pretty special. So,
like, you genuinely, in the dictionary, you are the definition of a badass motherfucker right now. Like, you are, it's, and then the coolest thing about you as well is that just your presence, like, you are just a very humble person. Like, and I think that's what makes it amazing, or the sport amazing, to be honest with you, because actually there are so many individuals in that ultra space that they don't do it for validation or recognition. Like it really is, it's just the purity and the passion for the sport.
Yeah.
But for those of you that you're trying to probably comprehend how far 268 miles is, Jack would essentially had to have run consecutively just over 10 marathons. Now you did this, and I think this is one of the most impressive things. You did all of this with, I think, only 45 minutes sleep ish.
I reckon 54 was about right. Half an hour of that was actually indoors. The rest was just in the snow.
For you, I guess, when you started that, did you go into it with confidence?
When the day came, I did. But I mean, my training in December was extremely patchy and extremely difficult. Every single day I woke up with some sort of jeopardy in the body, and I thought that my big shot at a 5-year project was gone. And I worked with, I spoke to my wife. She was absolutely pivotal, and worked with a psychologist locally who's a really close friend. And we realised that just because I've had a bad 5 weeks doesn't mean that's not undone 5 years of patience. And when the time came, I'd envisaged doing it the hard way. So after 20 hours, everything hurts. So I'd envisaged getting to the 10-hour point and injuries presenting themselves and it hampering me, but finding a way through it. And then when I got on the start line and I ran the first climb and I was leading the race, and there's a picture of like 11 elite runners just running away, amazing conditions. And I just felt like I was just doing what I was born to do, and my body was holding up. I was like, oh my God, this is going to be something pretty drastic. And my race turned out like that.
Because I mean, the pace was too quick in the beginning, right?
Yeah, so I've never ran a fast 100-mile race, but I ran a 100-mile PB in this. I ran a 200-mile PB in this race. I text my wife, actually. My friend, my close friend Hugh, took me up. He's got a relationship with the Pennine Way as well. That's what it is. Like, it's not, I haven't got a relationship with running. I've got a relationship with that place. Like, and I just take myself there and give myself up to it, and then I leave. That's what I think that's what hill runners do. They'll set themselves up. They'll put their energy and their self into a certain area, and then they do what they can, and then they leave, and then they go back a better person or worse person. They succeed or they fail. I suppose it's similar to marathon. But I text my wife on the way up. I stayed in my bed the night before, the same as 2023, because I'm about 45 minutes from the start, and I just said, get your popcorn ready, because I think it's come good after a really difficult build up.
The preparation leading up to it, you sustained, was it 3 injuries?
Yeah. So Achilles, IT band, and sprained ankle within sort of 3 weeks. And one would get better, and then you get out of bed the next day and it was like, oh no, something else is cropping up. But the race started for me basically like November the 30th. That's when I had to build my resilience. So when the race came along, the actual race on the start line, I was like, I've already done everything. I've already been through everything.
How can you possibly know though? I guess apart from your team giving you the green light, like going into something like that, even if you're given the all clear, I guess it's the psychological state, right? Where even if you feel like you're okay, at any given point, any one of those injuries could flare up.
I mean, there was no green light, or it was just I had to deal with it all, figure it out. And I think like long distance running is like an equation. You need to keep your equation as simple and as clean as you can. And mine just got complicated, and I managed to simplify that, train specifically. And I just didn't give myself a choice. And like elite runners were getting added to the start line, John Kelly, mainly, who's a level above me. And I was like, if I'm going to do it, I've got to do it this year with the best runners in the world, per se, on the start line. This is the perfect chance to deliver what you want to do. So I didn't give myself a choice. Maybe the injuries were there, and I just had a different level of thinking where they didn't show themselves.
I think the big question for a lot of people would be is just why? Like why do you do something like this? I
mean, I've always said that I think like the biggest crime in life is like not trying to fulfill potential. So like I found my feet in the sport, and running evolved in my life, and then I realised, you know what, maybe I've got the stomach and the legs for this. Have I got the head and the heart? And the head and the heart have started to catch up. And like I've always just sort of thought, well, if I get to 50 and I haven't given something a really good swing of the bat, that for me, like living with regret is something I fear. And I was like, there's no way I'm going to do that. So the project was to let all the fireworks off at this year's race. And it took me 5 years to build up to that and managed to succeed, which is extremely rare and extremely special. And I realised that I might never have a day like that again. So now I'm having a nice reset and just looking at the sport through different eyes.
I mean, I guess for yourself, I'd love to know, like, is it a combination of just natural born talent, or do you think it's a combination of that and the psychological state that you find yourself in?
I mean, I do think I'm built like a runner. I do think I've got good genes, good genetics, a bit of luck. And then the thing, you know, where do you go when the fitness runs out? Like, what's then? And like, running strips you bare more than any sport, especially when you leave the roads behind and the isolated trails, you know, down here or in a more favourable area. And it's your characteristics that come out through exposure, through all different points of your life. So the characteristics I showed in this race were I'm just myself when I'm on the trail. Like, this version of myself in 10 years' time, I'll be a different version of myself. I might be better, I might be worse, might be, I don't know. But it's that moment in time you get a chance to paint a picture on the Pennine Way, and it just felt like my whole life had just come to that point. I know it sounds daft. I mean, I've only been running for 6 years, but when I was up there and I was right on the brink of what a human can do when they're trying to stay awake, I just felt like I was born to suffer, and this was my time.
When you cross that finish line, though, what does it do for you?
Well, like, I touched the wall at the end. So there's a pub in the south, which you run past at the start, and there's a pub in the north that you sort of touch, and it's like it's a monumental achievement in sort of the ultra running world. And I don't really like talking about myself. So like, if I'm a bit hesitant saying that, you know, people do amazing things that a lot of people don't know about. And you get there and you finish and you touch it. Felt like the end of something. Didn't feel like the start of something. Like, I'm still waiting for that next stage, but it felt like the end of something, and it felt right to really like close that chapter.
What enables you to thrive in those moments, though? Is there things from your past that you reflect on? Is it the love for your wife? Is it the future that it can bring you?
I think it's just realising opportunity there and taking a risk. I just want to be like a better man and a better husband, a better brother, a better son, and a better dad to my little dog Winnie. And like, when I had that opportunity to like not enhance myself, but when I had an opportunity to like just show what I've got and who I can be, that the pressure wasn't there. It was just be yourself in this scenario.
How do you even like plan things like I guess your sleep, or when it comes to things like food in particular? Do you have like a set routine that you like to follow? And then I guess with sleep, is that just go for feel?
It's self-taught, and it's like a program within me that I just put into practice. I just do it. Again, have the ability to plan. I plan to make big race decisions when they come in the race. But I don't plan what I'm going to do until I'm actually right there with 88 miles behind me, with 140 miles behind me, with 210 miles. Just have the ability and the mindset, be like, you will make the right decision for that moment in time. A decision it's always correct at that moment in time. And then 2 seconds later, it can be incorrect and you made a mistake. And how can you rectify that? But with the information you've got, I believe I'll always make the right decision for that moment in time. And sleep-wise, just do whatever it takes to touch the wall first, like just whatever it takes. I had no sleep strategy whatsoever. Got into the checkpoint where I had the half an hour sleep actually in a bed, decided then, right, I'll have half an hour here. You know, if Damien Hall was sort of 20 minutes behind me and when I was nearly collapsing on the Cheviot, I would have found a way through that and not slept on the fence. Just believe that I would have pushed. I mean, I got close to the edge, but I do think there's more to be. As I get better, I really want to improve. Like, I genuinely believe I can get better with this, especially physically. Mentally, that's just gonna come as I become a dad, or life changes and I'm affected by that. But physically, I know I can get better, and that's really exciting because I'm only 29, and I want to improve. And a lot of people have been talking about what's next, blah, 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 and I just need to get better, review what I've done, take out the positives, and then get better.
You're kind of fueling people's hunger, right, for what it is that you do. Coming off the back of such a huge success, people, I mean, immediately you'll have people, I'm sure even when you cross the freaking finish line, I have no doubt you being interviewed and the first thing people will be like is, what's next? It's like, just let me process this first.
I said to Damien, asked me what's next in a message, I don't know, 8 weeks ago, and I just said life.
Yeah.
Like, life's next. The person I am on the trail, I take into life, and that's the most important thing. Running is just like a way I express myself. I love running and I enjoy it. I don't need it every day. I don't do massive miles. It's important to me and it has a place in my head and my heart, but life is what I'm dedicated to. And being that brother, that husband, that son, that's what's special for me because I've not been a good person all my life.
The fact you're 29 years of age, I mean, one of the blessings, I guess, that comes with running is experience, right? And that's where those decisive decisions come from. But the fact that at 29 years of age, you're already making those decisions. And physically, I mean, you're in such a good place. The body's still fresh. Yeah. I mean, most ultra runners that I've come across, like from that extreme end of the spectrum, are like, they're in like their 40s, 50s. Some even are in their 60s.
Yeah.
It might not be as quick, but like you said, that the decisive decision making, they just get it absolutely bang on.
Yeah.
Those small percents make such a difference.
Yeah. Yeah, maybe I've got fresher legs, fresher head, fresher heart to take me into these situations because I am still learning. But I'll be learning. I want to have a career doing this, but like career is like a package as a human being, not just. I'm a runner same for you. You're not just, what about them other 22 hours a day when you're not training? Like, what you doing? Like, who are you then? You don't just slip out of one zone and go into the other. It's, if you're going to do it, it's everything. And a lot of people can't deal with that. But, I've just adapted the ability to deal with that and I understand what I want from running and I'll use it as a mechanism to be a better person, and then the running results should reflect that.
Do you think, though, that you could be the best version of yourself and not have to run 268 miles?
Yeah. My most impressive in... What do you mean running at all?
Well, because I just think, you're saying that, what it is that you're doing makes you feel the best version of yourself. And I just wonder if there's ways in which you could achieve that. I mean, I relate to you. This isn't me saying that I think you should change your approach because I get it. I could not connect more with it. I feel like I am the most present. I have the most purpose and I'm my happiest when I do these things. And then in turn, that radiates to the people around me. But I get that question quite a lot where they're like, do you have to do these sorts of things in order to be that best version? Is there maybe an easier way of achieving something like that? But I'm like, well, if I enjoy it, then why would I change it? So that's why I'm fascinated to know with yourself if...
I'd like to think I'll carry on expressing myself through running, but it's not like bigger and better. I don't feel like I need to do a 500-mile run to get another high. I don't feel like I need to do a 700-mile run.
Now, the problem we have is that, and I guess in some respects, a comparison, like when you've done something like the Spine, which is one of the hardest, I'd say it's one of the hardest races in the world, categorically. The question I guess people will always ask is like, what's next? And I guess it's that view of like, well, how can you top doing the Spine? And I think the question I'm trying to get at here with yourself is that I'm seeing a trend now where people are constantly under pressure or putting pressure on themselves where they're like, well, yeah, that's a valid point. I've got to outdo myself.
No.
But
the only reason I managed to do what I did is because when I got up there and when the sleep questions came, when the darkness was there, when the snow was there, I was just myself. Like I had the legs to take me there, but I was just myself. So if you complete a challenge and it's a success, then appreciate that, enjoy that. Don't set yourself up for failure and go bigger and better to get extra kudos or extra followers. Just be happy that you were yourself at the right time in the right place to get a success.
Yeah, I'm happy you said that. I feel like there's a couple of people I know in this space, and I think the wrong decisions have been made. And I sometimes
saying yes is easy.
Yeah, it is. And I think that's the problem though, because I think what you've nailed on the head there is like, how do you feel when you are doing it?
Yeah.
Because if you're asking yourself that question whilst you're doing it, then I think you're already in the wrong place. I think the fulfillment you are getting from it has got to be the priority over like what people may think of you when you do it.
Oh yeah.
Because there's nothing worse than having consecutive failures, right? I mean, there's a perfect example, and this isn't to discredit him, but like Ross Edgley, like what an unbelievable athlete he is, but he's come off the back of two pretty crazy outcomes, you know, to the point where he's been hospitalized. And I'm kind of sat there looking at him going, I know how phenomenal this guy is. He's one of the most incredible athletes I've ever come across. But questions have got to be asked where, you know, one DNF is one thing, but two consecutive DNFs, but in the fashion that it was, where was the decision making wrong in that equation, and how can that be rectified? Because
patience is the one.
Don't rush it.
Don't go back to prove yourself. Like I DNF'd the spine in 2020 when I was a boy. I was a fucking boy. Like I wasn't the best version of myself or a better version of myself. I used the race in the wrong way. And the Penn Way gave me a chance in 2020, and I made mistakes because I was recovering from other things. I wasn't ready. It took me 4 years of being a man, being exposed, starting a business, starting a family, work, life pressures, everything. All that 4 years culminated in the performance you saw. So like that DNF at the time was like the best thing that's ever happened to me. Absolutely, because
yeah, I mean they do.
It's unexplainable,
but they do, don't they? I mean, it's you get such a valuable lesson from them. You know, like even with I guess the failures or the lessons that come with it, they're so valuable because I think with that comes again reflection, right? How can I amend something like that? And I think you're right. Patience is just so key. We can with that adrenaline, we can just rush into the next thing incredibly quickly, just because I guess pressures of outside. You know, with somebody like yourself, I don't doubt that you've got brands, the media, you know, just random bystanders who are probably involving themselves in kind of what is next and wanting to be on board of that journey. It also comes down to like the financial as well, bud. Like, you know, although running, and this is what a lot of people would know, is running isn't your full-time job.
Yeah.
You know, you actually have a job that you balance with that too. So, you know, when you're running, unless you're earning an income from that, you're taking yourself away from the thing that is earning you the living, you know, and vice versa. It's a tricky gig, I guess, to try balance.
It is, but again, it just gives me a different perspective. It gives me a different motivation. Like working in the construction job still right now is like a blessing, and after the spine it was a blessing, and before the spine it was a blessing when I was injured and all I wanted to do was sit around and feel sorry for myself that I thought I'd messed up my chances. Just exposure to real life. An interesting thing you said about going back to amend something. Like in 2020 for me and other people who've DNF, like it's meant to happen like that. Like you're not ready, so you're not going to amend a mistake you think you've made. I wouldn't look at it like going to amend it. I looked at it like I'm going to go away. I'm going to grow as a man. I'm going to get better, and then I'm going to go and blow the back doors off it. Like if I went to amend it, I might have limped and finished 18th.
Yeah.
I was like, right, that's happened, yeah. But on that start line, I'm not like, oh my God, I've got to amend the mistakes I made. Just like it's a fresh and another chance. Just run.
This week's episode is sponsored by Runner. Runner is a personalized running coaching app helping runners of all abilities train for any goal. From a first 5K to a marathon, even an ultra marathon. When the time is right for you, your plan can be created within a minute and ready to go. With each plan, Runner provides all the help a runner requires, including strength and conditioning, and you can also reach out to the team at any time via the support tab inside the app. For a 2-week free trial on any personalized running plan, use the code PHOENIX. No matter your goal, Runner is there to help you achieve it. What's interesting though is that you obviously have the opportunity to go full time, but still opt to have the job as well. And do you feel like by not making running almost your entirety, that, like you said, that's the blessing that comes with the job, is that it's a really healthy distraction. You enable yourself to kind of not switch off from running, but there's a different environment for you to be. The type of conversation that you're going to have is very different. Whereas I feel like sometimes when you just commit your entirety to it, it can really consume you.
Like after the spine, I would have had to tweak my lifestyle, but I could have just been like, right, well, this is what I'm going to do. But something was telling me I'm not ready for that. Like, I know I've had this performance and I know it looks like it does, but like I genuinely believe I can get better, and I need to be in the environment I'm in that's created this spine performance to then go on to the next thing, and then I'll review again and assess then. But with the information I got and the feeling I had speaking to my wife and some other people who I trust, just didn't feel right to just when you're running so far and it's so hard and everything is out to bite you and kick you and fucking stop you, it really is who you are, and I'm not ready to change who I am yet. Like I could change who I am, go and win a competitive 100-mile race, and it looked like, wow, that was an amazing decision to focus on recovery, rest. But I feel like my mind would drift. I think I've done it the hard way. I'm proud of that, and I'll continue to do that. Like 4 years ago, if you'd said the position I'm in now, I'd have gobbled everything up, like every opportunity, every race, every podcast, even, or every opportunity. But when you get there, if you feel like that's going to blur the person you become, you should not say yes. You should not say yes. Otherwise, when it really gets hard and you have to lean on who you are, you've lost sight of who you are.
What does the future look like for you, though? I mean, do you think you'd ever find a place where you could sit there with Jess and go, do you know what? I'm happy. You could end up winning the next 5 races and the profile continues to grow, the brand deals start to come in. But I guess if you start to lose that feeling or that sensation that you have within, then...
Yeah, I mean, I'm never going to go on a start line. Like, I could go... Like, I've done my thing at the spine, like the Pennine. I'm not finished with the Pennine Way, but I'm finished with the spine. So let's say, I mean, there's a lot of parameters, but let's say if I entered next year and got the win, maybe ran slower, it looks great on paper, but for me, that's not good enough, and I'm lying to myself and cheating myself. I've done what I needed to do. I want to go away. I want to get better. I want to grow as a man, and then eventually, like, just human nature, like, I'm gonna get better. Like, I believe I can get better, and I want to try and crack that code and puzzle. And I want to do things like distance doesn't daunt me. I believe I can figure it out in a single stage, especially. But there's definitely events and routes and games out there which scare me, and I want jeopardy, and I want to look at something and be like, you know what, I don't think I can do that. And then see if I can.
I think that's it, isn't it? It's about testing yourself and throwing yourself into those environments that are the most uncomfortable. Yeah. I just think they're life-changing. I always say to people, just any type of run I think can achieve that. But for me in particular, on a personal level, like any ultra I've ever done, whether it's a 250K over 5 days or a 24-hour, it just has stripped me of absolutely everything. And
apart from like a core of who you are, like an energy.
But like you said, it's one of these beautiful moments where you just give yourself to the world. You just go, have me. And I don't know, it's just one of the most euphoric feelings. And I think it reminds, like, for me, I think the biggest thing is it just reminds me of the power of gratitude. The simplest things, to be able to wash, eat food, to sleep, to have the comfort of someone around me. Like, it's the smallest things. And I think that's the problem. You know, in my personal experience, we're so surrounded now by so much materialism and just like skewed
it's like what's
views
real
on things. Exactly. And I feel like when you're in that moment, it's again, although my mind is completely jumbled, I just feel at my most peaceful because
clarity.
The clarity.
I mean, we're animals, aren't we? We're built to move, we're built to suffer, and we're built to survive. And the zone I went into was a survival mode. I had the mind and the body, but I was in survival mode. Like, I was feral. I was sadistic, feral, dirty and dangerous. But like, I'm happy with that. Like, that's not a problem for me.
I love
where like, who else in life is going to experience that? It's like a boxer when they're literally on the ropes and they're like, not fight or flight, but it's like you go back to some human instinct from a long, long time ago that flows in your blood, that comes out, and it came out at just the right time, in just the right place, on just the right race for me. And like, that's just sensational.
Are there any races in particular that appeal to you right now? What's the one that Jasmine Paris completed this year?
The Barclay.
Would the Barclay appeal to you?
Yeah, I mean, that's definitely something where if I sat down here and looked at it, it's like, yeah, when I go into an event, I'm 101% prepared. Yeah. Like route, everything. But here, the challenge is actually accepting that you're only ever 90% because you don't even know the time. You don't even know the time of the race. You don't know the route. Nothing. He owns all the cars, lads, and it's a massive game. Something that intrigues me, but again, I need to improve to go there and paint my picture. And hopefully, you never know, maybe I'll get the chance to do that. We'll see. But one thing that was really interesting for the Spine is I've got no events booked, little fell races, little things here and there. It was everything. Like I purposely haven't got my summer planned because I didn't want, when you're 192 miles in, you're running along the Hadrian's Wall, it's snowing, you don't want to be there anymore. Of course I didn't want to be there, but I didn't have a distraction in my mind. I didn't have a 2% that was thinking, oh, what about UTMB in the summer? It was all or nothing. And like, it was pure and it was clean because it was literally everything at that moment in time. There was nothing to distract me, which is an interesting technique, but something I deem necessary. And again, like when I touched the wall, it was the end. So whatever's next is strategic move, but it's sort of natural as well. I want sort of solitude and exposure out there on my own.
There's something I think is really interesting about the ultra space is I found myself, when we were talking on the phone, I found myself doing an ultra in Sri Lanka, and I was chatting to this lad and his story was so unbelievably inspiring. And ultimately his new journey from addiction into running was quite a powerful one, where he'd struggled through so much of his life. And I think it was merely just like he'd hit breaking point and a friend just said, listen, come out for a run with me. Yet the transition, bud, was just phenomenal, where the distances just continued to increase. And I think for him, what he'd been through in the past, it almost set like this foundation, and just ultra running was something that he just became unbelievably good at. For so many people that are listening, there seems to be a lot of people with that background getting into trail running. Why do you think that is? Because you speak very openly about your past with gambling, and for you, the journey kind of improved. Was it from 2019?
Yeah, that's when I registered and stopped gambling. So that was what, 5 years this December. That's crazy. My gambling story, I was a young man and I was bobbing through life without much direction, and gambling showed itself to me, and I took it up like you'd take up running or a new drink or a new hobby. Like I just took it up, and it ravaged me and I made mistakes. The one thing I'll say about how I dealt with it, like I owned it. Like I own it now, and I owned it then, and I knew I was in a dangerous spot in my life and I had to figure it out. I went full circle with it. I didn't seek any help. I went to the bottom of it and climbed out, and that resilience is obviously, I believe, rolled into my running. But why do I think it appeals, especially trail runners? I think the opportunities in trail running are literally unlimited and endless. So a bit of delusion, a little bit of excitement, jeopardy, danger, risk. It's all connected to mountainous running, hill running, trail running.
Do you think it can give you, I guess, that feeling, but just in a different way?
I mean, that's what at the start of my running, I was gambling and running at the same time, and it gave me the ability to suffer in a different way. It gave me, if I was running a 100-mile race at the weekend, it gave me 24 hours away from my phone. It gave me clarity to think and to learn and to assess just how maybe the midweek was a disaster, and then the weekend I was like, well, I'm putting in like elite running performances. What's going on? And when I first started running, I was 2% a runner, 98% a gambler, and over the years, running helped me get my numbers closer and closer. And then I won a long distance race, 188 miles from South Wales to North Wales. And in that run, I made decisions like I'm going to marry marry my wife. I'm going to take more responsibility. I'm going to stop gambling. And about 8 weeks after that, I pulled the plug on gambling, and my numbers finally tipped over from, went from 51% a runner to 49% a gambler. And when I split from gambling, I was sick of it. There was no emotion. There was no interaction. It was just like going to the toilet or brushing your teeth. It's just something that was there.
Do you think that's the key thing then, isn't it? When I guess you just touched on it there, where you were like, there wasn't a lot going on in life. And so I guess that kind of filled the void by doing it.
Yeah.
Is that where people can take inspiration and see the light, where ultimately it's trying to feel that thing or fill that void, but trying to find the thing that makes you feel good?
I mean, running showed itself to me, and I chose running to manifest and get myself out of the situation I was in. And then when I got out of the situation, I was at a crossroads again, where like, right, can I be an athlete? Like, not a runner, can I be an athlete? And that I believe running chose me then. Like, I chose running as a mechanism, or as an avenue to leave the person I was. And it got me to the point again where it was like, right, okay, you've transitioned from a gambler to a runner. What's next? Are you going to carry on this trajectory, or are you going to try and be elite, or try and be good, or try and be the best? And running chose me then. Running, it didn't draw me in, but it just showed itself again. And I was like, I'm going to stick with this and give it everything I've got. If you're stuck in a cycle right now and listening to this or visualizing this, and you're struggling with something, whether it could be food, it could be drink, it could be drugs, it could be gambling, it could be anything, too much screen time, do something different. If you've always wanted to read a certain book, but you've never bothered buying it off Amazon or whatever, buy the book. If you've always wanted to go to Thailand, book a flight to Thailand. If you've always wanted to take up painting, go to a painting class. If you've always wanted to row on the river in the city, contact the rowing club, see if you can get part of it. Change your circumstance, change your parameters. Just like you on your run when those shining lights came on. Like you latched onto it and it changed your vision, and it grew. Something grew inside you, like just tiny little tweak. Mine was longer, and the process was many miles covered before I got the clarity I needed. But that clarity's got to come from somewhere, and it's exposure. Change your friendship groups. Change your commute. Like, expose yourself to different things away from your bubble, and just see if that makes the change that you need.
For me, when we were talking and you look at the phenomenal things that you've achieved, there are other individuals in this world that equally are doing these sorts of things. And actually, for me, often the unsung hero is the person, the partner, the wife, the girlfriend, the fiance. I've seen both sides of the spectrum where, I have friends in this space and, they have a wife like Jess and they believe they can do anything and they want to do everything. And then I've seen it on the other side of the spectrum where there's such a lack of appreciation and understanding, and it can make the process quite a taxing one.
And it was taxing for me at the start of this as I tried to change my numbers and get closer to that elusive 49-51. I had incredibly difficult chats with my wife when I said, again, about that fulfilling potential. Something was telling me that I could do something drastic in this sport, not for accolades, but for me, like for us. And I think when you get married, me and Jess have been together, I think it's 14 years this coming October, straight from school. When you get married, you become one person. So like you morph into one skin. And honestly, like when I was up there on the Pan Am Way, I just did it for her. Like I just had a chance to like paint a picture, and she was there, and I just did it for her. And she's a special person. She does things properly, like all the bits in life that are important. She does them properly, like career driven, beautiful soul, happy smile. And if I take the sadistic side of being a person and the danger side and go and do what I do, then I think it's a really good mix. But I mean, you become one person when you get married and you're devoted to someone, and the satisfaction when something comes off and you both benefit is like pretty powerful. And again, that's something that you can't measure through trophies or records, like just being a better better family man and being a better husband is literally all I'm in this for. Like the running is the motorway.
Do you think you could do what you do without having a Jess in your life, or can you see just how valuable she is as a person?
I think if you're doing this for yourself, you'll struggle to get to the level I got to. I think there needs to be more investment, there needs to be more jeopardy, and there needs to be other voices in the room. Like obviously, when I was struggling with my gambling addiction for a long time, Jess was the beacon then that gave me hope and kept me out of prison, or kept me out of dangerous situations that I'd got away with in the past that I was trying to move away from. She didn't know per se, but she was the light and the hope. And I've just taken that light into sport. But for people who haven't got that light and hope, there's people who care. Like there's people close to you who care, who want to see you succeed. And whether that succeed is winning or coming 58th or coming 294th or finishing the London Marathon in 8 hours, that will make an impact on someone and they'll be proud of you and happy. And I'm sure there's people in your circle who are invested and who care. It doesn't have to be someone as close as a wife, but if you're doing it for yourself, I think
that's a good point, bud.
I don't think it's good enough.
I really connect with you in the level of like when you go into these things, you don't want to say the line of like, I'm willing to give up my life, but you're willing to get as close to that line as possible in order to get the end goal, or at least I am.
Yeah.
But I feel like the greatest asset I have is my daughter. You know, for me, she is the one that makes me make those decisive decisions.
Yeah.
If I ever feel like I'm ever putting myself at like unbelievable risk, then I think of her and it just reins me back in. Do you find that Jess has that same impact on you?
Yeah, like Jess is the prop that props me up when I'm slumping and I'm about to fall. And when I say fall, I mean fail. But she's also the fuel that gets me to a space that no one's ever done before on a race like the Spine. And I've obviously always got to get home to her and the dog. And like that moment when I got out my dad's car after the Spine and I saw her and saw the dog, it's just like, that's why it felt like the end, because I'd like in my own head, like the calculations, I'd rectified the years where I hadn't been myself. Like I was done. Like I was finally done, like righting the wrongs. And now, like I'm a different person now. Like just got a different view on things since the Spine. But because it was a huge package and a huge project. Started long time ago. Even before I was running, closed the door on that, which was nice.
You're a strong man, dude. Honestly. Like I just think it's amazing.
You've got
that
it,
you
like,
can express yourself in the way that you do.
You know, like if you ignore emotions on like the stuff you've done, like if you ignore them and you don't let them in because you're some sort of psychopathic, like macho man, like you are ignoring the thing that makes a difference. Like
unbelievable. I mean, for me,
you've got to embrace that. Otherwise,
it's redefining. You know what masculinity is. For me, in my opinion, in terms of it, is like when I was doing the 76 last year, and I found myself crying, and people were seeing it. There wasn't a single man, and I don't care what background you have or how hard you are, could call me soft. And that's the problem, right? We are fearful to show that emotion, and for me, when it got to the point where Marines and military personnel were coming to join me, where they were breaking down and found it hard to, but it was enabling them to have a healthy and a happy relationship with their children, their friends, with their partners. That for me, I was like, we're achieving something here. And I think that was one of the major goals for me. It was like, I'm a very expressive person, and I'm so grateful that you are able to share that with me and that you are too, because I don't think we see enough of that. I think, again, too many people get caught up in this space, and it's that fear of judgment, right, by expressing themselves. But you've earned that. Like, there's no way you can put yourself through this physical and mental torture and not be expressive.
Yeah. I mean, like maybe when my running first started, like I'd shut the door on that and be like, no, that's not the way I want to be. I've got to be one-dimensional. I've got to be tough. I've got to finish it. But then I realised to actually enhance a performance, no, you've got to open that box and take the sweets out of that box at exactly the right point, at exactly the right time. And I've just adapted and somehow figured out just how to do that. I just have. And like running, when you strip down and you strip bare, like running on emotion, like I've said before, what happens when the fitness runs out? That head and the heart thing is just the purest thing I've ever experienced. Like when I was in a zombie state on the Pennine Way, 54 minutes sleep, pushing when I didn't have to. I could have slowed down 4 hours, took 6 hours off the record. Something was telling me this is my time. The 1% was there, and I was following some really sadistic, strange pattern. Like I was just fueled on emotion, like pure love, pure emotion, just a purity of, just felt like the most alive I've ever been. But if you plug me into a machine, people would think that I was borderline on the verge of death. But is when I felt most alive. And I'm not talking like jumping out of a plane, adrenaline. I'm just like a natural exposure, and the body and the mind connecting to find a state that was unexplainable survival mode.
As we kind of come to the end of the podcast, you know, if anybody is listening right now, there's so much they would have taken from this conversation anyway, but if anyone finds themselves at a point where they wish to test themselves, or they're going through a testing time in life anyway, what words can you give them?
Do hard things, you know, do hard things, go into situations that you might not be able to figure out where there's jeopardy. And there's always a way, like, you know, find a way through it, and let it engulf you. Don't be scared if you get a passion and it's risky. Let it engulf you and step into that. It might, at the start, you might step into them shoes and then leave them shoes. You might do that 3 times a week, you know, running or rowing or swimming. And then eventually it might come to the crossroads where you have to stay in them shoes the whole time to just like go to the next level. And that next level doesn't have to be elite performance, but don't be scared to like give yourself up to it. Like there's not a lot more in life that's like, you know, when you hold your daughter or when you're around your family, like they hold all the keys. Like they are the most important thing in life. And I think, you know, sport, if you're becoming a better person, can have that effect. And don't be scared to give yourself up to that. But you need to break the chain and change the system and try new things, do hard things, and just assess who's around you. And are they really benefiting you? And if not, sometimes you have to close your circle instead of just saying yes all the time. If you didn't know his name now, remember the name Jack Scott. You know, I'm just so happy to have you on the podcast. And like I said, I just, it's not so much about the accolades that you have, but I think it's more just about you as a person that I feel incredibly passionate about, just exposing more people to your view of life and the mentality that you have. I feel like so many people will probably disconnect from the distances that you run, but will connect with you as the individual. And I think that's what's most important. I'm so excited to see what the future has in store for you, mate. You know, family, social, career, running, whatever it might be, because I just think it's such a bright one. And, you know, I'm a number of years older than you, and I look at you now at 29 years of age and just think, holy shit, like that's the inspiration you need to wake up every day and go get it. And I'm just thankful, mate. It's just been the best conversation. Well, no, I appreciate the platform, and it's nice to come in studio and have a bit more of like an emotional chat rather than a Zoom, and hopefully it's reached some different ears. Yeah, and people can take things away from it that will benefit them.
Oh, 100%. Thank you so much, brother. And I cannot wait to see what comes next. Big love.
Top man.
Yes, brother. If you enjoyed today's podcast, you fatted biscuit, all I ask of you in return is that you push that subscribe button and leave a review. Unless it's a bad one, you can keep that, you sausage. Your support, though, makes such a difference to this podcast and enables it to grow and connect with even more people around the world.